For the past few months, we've been tracking statewide rain and Sierra snow to give you a better sense of how El Niño is affecting California's drought. And we've limited our focus here to California's wettest months, which stretch from October to the beginning of April. We could still see some rain in coming weeks, but California's traditional wet season is now over. At the outset, climate experts told us that to really put a dent in the drought, we'd want to see rain and snow levels hit 150% of normal by April 1st. Unfortunately, we only really got about average precipitation in California this wet season. By April 1st, statewide rainfall topped out at 108% of normal, and the average Sierra snowpack measurement was just below normal at 91%. So, where do those numbers leave us today? Has the drought gotten any better? To find out, I came to the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and talked with the climate experts who helped us put together the KPBS Drought Tracker.
In very broad measure, I'd say we've gotten a little better.
But not so much better that we can safely go back to pre-drought water consumption levels, says Scripps climate researcher Dan Cahan. He says El Niño rains have filled some major reservoirs in Northern California, but precipitation was not evenly distributed throughout the state, leaving other areas fairly dry.
In this case, the West Coast distribution of precipitation, wet in the north, dry in the south, was pretty much topsy-turvy of what we expected.
The U.S. Drought Monitor shows that about 75% of the state is still in severe drought or worse. Cahan says continued conservation would be wise because we don't yet know what's in store for California's next wet season. This winter's strong El Niño pattern is starting to break down, and the National Weather Service's Climate Prediction Center says there's a 50% chance it could give way to a La Niña pattern by fall.
An El Niño is when it's unusually warm in the tropical Pacific Ocean at the surface, and a La Niña is when it's unusually cool at the tropical Pacific surface.
David Pierce is another Scripps climate researcher.
That's the La Niña that came across in '98.
Who helped compile data for the KPBS Drought Tracker.
Typically during La Niña, storms get steered away from California, more towards the Pacific Northwest. So that's not good for our water supply, basically.
If we are headed for a strong La Niña, California could be in for another year of drought.
But you can see this developing.
Pierce has seen some signs of a budding La Niña pattern, but he says it's still too soon to predict whether it will set in.
So right now, a majority of the models are showing we might go to La Niña conditions. I personally think it's pretty far out to say that with any certainty.
What we do know about the next few months is that current snow levels won't pull us out of the drought.
This is going into the fourth year of below average or way below average snowpack.
The Sierra snowpack, which provides about a third of California's total water supply, never quite got to 100% of normal this wet season. Dan Cahan says that's in part because temperatures in California were relatively high at various points this winter.
And of course that makes for rain instead of snow and tends to melt snowpack a bit earlier.
This winter wasn't quite as warm as past winters in the drought, but it was warm enough to affect snowpack growth. Cahan says this could be a preview of how global warming affects the Sierra snowpack in the future.
This is what temperatures look like in the state.
He showed me a model estimating that for every degree of Celsius in warming, California will lose about 20% of its April 1st snowpack.
By the end of the century, you can see here, in this particular example, we've lost more than half of the snowpack.
Less snowpack will mean less water stored up for spring and summer.
Let us know.
Cahan says climate change is going to shift our understanding of normal for this crucial water source.
It's going to be a different form of water management that we're confronted with.
So what have we learned from the KPBS Drought Tracker? We've learned that it's hard to predict how exactly El Niño will impact California. Even record El Niños don't necessarily bring record rain and snow to California. And we've learned that despite big improvements over recent years, the drought is far from over. David Wagner, KPBS News.